All right, guys, welcome back to the Short Story Long podcast, where we share the work and play of working-class Midwestern millennials. I'm your host, Sam Derrickson, joined by my co-host, Andrew Dial.
What's up, guys?
And we're back for another episode. Hope you guys have been enjoying this stuff. Once again, please like, share, subscribe, and tell someone you know about that may like the podcast, and we can keep reaching more people. So we've got some people that have reached out to us on both Messenger and email, and we've got one here from Mr. Jake Helmick. Pretty much on board with this, but going to run this by Mr. Dozer here. He says we need to do weekly giveaways, but ask a question, kind of like the drive time trivia or whatever.
Okay.
And the first person to respond correctly gets the prize, and maybe we'll get more followers out of it. And I asked, what should we give away? And he says maybe some tumblers, or have somebody make some SSL decals and kind of give that stuff away. If only I knew somebody that could make that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I might be able to work something out there.
So if you guys got an idea for a logo or some swag that we could give away that's not going to cost us an arm and a leg, because we've already got like a bunch of money wrapped up in this deal.
Oh, we don't have much money in it. Sam does.
Okay. All right, that's fair. And then, so we might do that. That'd be kind of fun. So then John Flowers, he's a listener from California, good buddy of ours. We met him out wheeling out in California. He sent me a message on Facebook with 3 pictures, which I will show to Dozer here. And he says, P.S. Your podcast makes me feel normal. I thought I was the only one who bought biohazard dumpsters. So he sent some pictures in.
Check this out.
He sent some pictures in of some literal freaking pigsties.
It looks like a coupe, not a coupe, but a sedan car with the whole back seat is filled up to the armrest with garbage.
Is there any of the staples in there like we were talking about, like the...
the picture quality isn't good enough to... Oh, hold on a second. We got a close-up of the floorboard. I've never had a vehicle this bad. This is up to the bottom of the seat and garbage. I don't see any skull cans. There's some water bottles in there that could have tobacco spit in them. Lots of prescription pill bottles.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Not something I've really ran into a whole bunch. Lots of receipts, maybe some lotto tickets. So this...
What about the felony forest?
The felony forest.
There's not a close-up of the rearview mirror, so we're out of luck there. But anyway.
50-50 chance, honestly.
But we do enjoy reading the listener comments and hearing your guys' stories. Nate Frederick sent in a picture in an email of a house trailer. He said, I sold this trailer to a guy in Montrose, so if that guy is listening...
Shout out.
Screw you, guy. Just over 2 years ago, he paid me cash money for the trailer, but it's still sitting in my yard. Note to self, selling tip number 6,567,027. Always write up a contract for large items that must be moved.
It's a good idea.
He sold a trailer, but is still in possession of said trailer. So I imagine the reason he sold it was to get rid of it, and he still has it. Yeah, so... That's a good point. If you've got something big that you've sold, like a chicken coop, Josh Stork, basically make sure the guy is on time getting it out of there. And then he also said, in reply to another one of our podcasts, he said, you guys were talking about how far you drive on the trails in a day. And because that was the wheeling one. He said, a few years ago, I attended a Jeep Jamboree, first and last, in parentheses, in the Black Hills of South Dakota, which is a beautiful country, by the way. We signed up for the medium difficulty trail on the first day, which he told me later that's kind of like the biggest group because no one wants to do the easy stuff and no one wants to do the hard stuff.
Right.
So everyone signs up for the moderate. He said, big mistake. We did 1.27 miles of one creek bed in 1 8-hour day.
Holy cow.
I could not stand it. I would have had a sand page. I would have gone off. So we actually, transitioning to what's new, Boss Man's wife, her 30th birthday, we had a little get-together, and we rode down to Mount Vernon with him, and he was kind of giving us the the details on that trip, and it just sounded excruciating. But I guess they let Chloe Dozenbrock, Randy's daughter, drive for a little bit. And one of the trail guides was like, "Is she old enough to drive?" And Nate said, "Well, yes, she is, number one. And number two, she could outwheel 90% of the people in this trail right now." So, like, I guess they were the more stockish Jeeps were trying to climb over this little bitty obstacle, and every single person had to get out and take a picture of their rock up on a tire.
Oh, my gosh.
Or a tire up on a rock, and just all this stuff. And he was telling me how terrible it was. So
that reminds me, when I spent the summer of 2009 out in Wyoming, I brought my Jeep out there and got together at the local Jeep club, and they did a Father's Day run up in the mountains, in the Bighorn Mountains. And they had a hardcore group and an easy group. There was no medium. And I had my Jeep on 32-inch all-terrains. It's like, well, I better take the easy group, you know. And we went 30 miles through the mountains over rocks the size of basketballs all day. And I got back, and stock JKs went with the extreme people and had no problem. And I was like, oh, man, that should have been me. But that's when you were talking about easy, medium, that reminded me of that. I just went and beat my brains out all day on this trail. I mean, seen some gorgeous country, but I think I should have went with the hardcore guys.
we now know from experience, though, that a stock JK will wheel. I mean,
Yeah.
they get it pretty good right
I mean,
out
a
of the
stock
box.
XJ will wheel too if you don't care enough
If
the body panels.
If you don't care about the body panels, you can get a stock XJ to do some stuff. Ask me how I know.
Yeah, we'll have to get Jason's input on that whenever he gets on the show.
So, what's new with you, Dozer?
Well, what's new with me is a multi-part thing. This last weekend was the first Illinois gun season
Okay.
for deer hunting. In high school, before I got a girlfriend, I had no other hobbies. Hunting was it. I mean, I would kill several deer a year with a bow, gun, late season, early season, winter. I hunted them all.
All the things.
Well, in the last couple of years after having kids and getting married and starting a business, I've not been hunting as much. And truthfully, the kids and the businesses don't take away from it as much as other hobbies like jeeping and cars. I kind of prioritize extra time and money to stuff with motors instead of deer hunting. But
Sure.
I have not killed a deer since 2018. My father says it's for lack of trying, which is partially true, but I've been pretty picky too, because if I'm going to take time out of my day to butcher a deer and haul it out and all that, I was wanting to shoot a big one. Well, this year my dad said he's been deer hunting in Illinois for 40 years, and this is the coldest opening weekend he's ever experienced. I think it was down to 17 degrees at one point this weekend.
It was pretty chilly.
20-mile-an-hour winds, just absolute wretched weather. And by the grace of God, killed a really, really nice buck. Opening day morning, about 8 o'clock. I was about froze to the tree by 8 o'clock. And usually we sit all day. Don't get out. Bring your lunch with you. Sit sun up to sundown.
Okay.
And got the buck. I was super happy about that. Didn't hunt Saturday. Didn't hunt Sunday morning. Went out Sunday afternoon and filled my doe tag.
Okay.
And I realized, so our last episode, I was giving Sam a hard time, but I would leave a birthday party to sell something.
Right.
And I guess karma kind of called me on that a little bit, because I've had a Jeep JK engine for sale for 2-3 months now. That I talked about on the last episode.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently this weekend was blow your JK up weekend. I had no less than 5 people. When can you meet? When can you meet? Well, I was deer hunting, and I realized that deer hunting selling this engine was not important enough to me to mess up my deer hunting.
To get out of the tree stand.
I ended up deleting it.
Deleted the ad.
I deleted the ad.
Are you going to repost it?
I think I'm going to keep it. If I'm going to put the supercharger on my Jeep, I should probably
Have a
keep
backup.
an extra motor around.
Okay.
So I was just kind of laughing about it. I was like, man, I give Sam a hard time about the same thing, and here I am, like, I can't be bothered to mess up my deer hunting to go sell this.
Boss man would say you're not hungry enough.
Well, that's probably true. So anyway, I mean, between the whole package deal I bought, I'm in that motor $300
That's good.
or engine, I guess.
Sure.
You know.
Doesn't matter. We're not picky down here.
It's got a starter motor on it. So.
This is a non-discriminatory location here.
So I figure for $300, I'll keep it. And, you know, what blew me away is everybody wants a guarantee. Like, do you promise this is going to be good? Like, no.
I promise it is a complete engine.
It's not locked up.
It spins over.
And it just blows my mind. Everybody's like, well, I need a guarantee. Like, if you want a guarantee, buy a reman.
Call Jasper.
Yeah. Spend triple what I'm asking, plus some, for a reman if you need a guarantee.
Right.
So,
Okay.
And then one guy messaged me and said, oh, I see by your Facebook profile that you off-road. I do not want this engine if it's been off-roaded.
So then why would you even respond to the ad?
Yeah, I said, well, I've never off-road with this engine, but I couldn't tell you its previous life.
It could have been upside down, backwards, on fire in a creek bed somewhere.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that I thought was kind of a interesting turn of events and kind of what's new with me. So what's going on with you, Sam?
So along the lines of selling stuff, truck's gone. Sold the truck.
Oh, yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
It's gone.
Way to go.
So,
I can't help but think that it was our podcast. That made
it had to been. It was a karma thing because we
putting
were
out good vibes.
We were discussing all the things I was doing incorrectly after advising others on how to sell. And one of the things that we discussed was the signage was a little messed up. So I put signs up a little bit different, more visible. Considered, like I said, deleting the ad and reposting it. But, I mean, almost immediately after recording the last episode, I got a message on Facebook. We kind of went back and forth. Long story short, he bought it. So, so the truck's gone.
Have you ever noticed selling something, you'll have it listed for weeks and weeks and weeks with no interest, and then all of a sudden one day you've got like 3 dudes fighting over it?
So I'm going to say that there's probably something in the algorithm for Marketplace that once you get a couple messages on it, I think it probably pops it back up in the feed to where more people are going to see it. So
right.
Either way, it's gone. Got paid for it. So looking for the next thing, and we have our next guest just walked in the door. So
previous guest, a returning alum.
We'll get him settled in here and get going. So we're joined by Kyle Willenborg. Say hello, Kyle.
How's it going?
You may remember him from a previous episode. So continuing with what's new with me is this last weekend, Mr. Willenborg had some people over and he purchased a new building for his business, and we were building some walls in there. Spent, I don't know, most of the day on Saturday, and I didn't come on Sunday, but they got quite a bunch of work done and kind of just turning it into something that's going to be suitable for his business. So you want to talk a little bit about that, Mr. Kyle?
Yeah, we turned a old mechanic's garage / wood shop into, or are turning it into a functioning detail shop, ceramic coating, shop. We'll have our own spray and bed liner booth. I'll be able to paint in one bay. It'll be nice.
So if you didn't listen to the episode where Kyle was on last, he has a business that does paint correction, ceramic coating, bed liners, pretty much your one-stop automotive shop for cosmetic type stuff. I think he told me last week he became a WeatherTech dealer.
Yes.
So that's pretty interesting. Going to be looking forward to getting some WeatherTechs for my stuff. But yeah, so like he's kind of underselling a little bit. This shop is, when was it built? In the 70s?
78.
Okay, so, and it basically hasn't been updated since.
No.
And it's just kind of an open floor plan with some in-ground lifts and a, what was it? Was a brake?
Semi, like a DOT brake tester.
It's something strange. I've seen them in old shops before, but They ripped that all out, and there's some stuff that the floor needs leveled and things like that. But it's really coming together. It's turned into a really nice space. It's going to be really good for them. Pretty excited. But the biggest part about it is it's right downtown in Teotopolis, Illinois, which is a pretty tight-knit community. And 2 weeks ago, he had the outside of it painted. It was like crap brown with dark brown trim. Like I said, it was built in the 70s and never updated. And doesn't matter what you spent on it, Kyle, because it was worth twice whatever you paid, because it changed the look of downtown T-Town. And between him and his brother and other people that I know, hundreds of text messages saying, wow, I can't believe he painted that. It looks so good. Completely changed the look of downtown. Just really classed it up a lot.
I think the first day they finished, like they were finishing the gray. It was a gray with black trim. The last day they were putting the last coat of the gray on. I think I had 65 text messages that day from no numbers that I have saved, like talking about, like you just said, looks great, so glad you did what you did. It's night and day difference from what it was before. So
nothing against the old man that had it before, but he was just towards the end of his, career with that building and just had no use for anything dressy or fancy. But considering Kyle's in a cosmetic industry, he had to kind of church it up a little bit, as they say.
Now, what you guys haven't touched on is the exciting part is Kyle has grown his business from basically a 2-bay garage behind his house to he's going big time.
Well, it's even more than that.
It goes back to like
detailing in your mom's garage.
Yeah. Cody started CW in my mom's garage like in high school. He wrenched on the side-by-sides and four-wheelers after hours of working at Weber Brothers. And he'd gotten an accident on a motorcycle and broke his leg, pretty much lost his job, if I remember right. And he decided at that point he was going to buy the Jefferson Street building and never really looked back. And I was working for Ted Rhodes in Effingham at Dusty Rhodes Detailing and decided that I would moonlight some details on the side for race car money. And I did that for like 7 years in my mom's 20 by 20 garage. Mm-hmm. Bought the house that I'm in now with a 30 by 40. I thought like...
Didn't you buy Dave's business before you bought your house?
Yes. So I bought like the mobile reconditioning business probably 3 years before I bought my house. And
it was a little like 7 by 13 or 12.
7 by 10.
Little trailer.
I could rebuild axles in that thing like nobody's business.
Oh, I remember that.
I think what Edith said, a wheel bearings
once a week,
once a month.
You got to put grease on them, Kyle.
Nah, you just keep pulling it, baby.
The old half-inch impact, torque her down until she stops spinning.
That's right. That's preload right there.
That's Dean Willenborg tight.
Yeah, exactly.
So anyway, you bought your house that had a kind of the same deal, a dated shed.
Just a 30 by 40 pole barn with concrete floors. Spray foam insulated it, white tint on the walls and the ceiling, added 2 garage doors, a walk-in door, 30-some LED lights, and then thought that I was big time and was going to have all the room in the world. And
how long did that last? 3-4 weeks?
3-4 minutes.
I think like the 4th week I was like, shit. It was real bad when my wife moved in because I had some of my cars in the house garage, and then she moved in and thought she needed to park in the garage.
What's with women and wanting to park their shit inside?
Yeah, my wife never gets to park inside, so I'm lucky there.
My
$1,500 Ford Falcon is inside.
My garage has a car and a Razor in it. All my stuff that I drive sits outside.
Yeah. So she moved in, and one of the cars went to the shed, and then the other car stayed in the garage, and it's been downhill from there. Ran out of room in a hurry. Thought really long and hard before I made the purchase because I was at the point in life where like everything was going good, and it's like you could chill out where you're at now, or just try to
Get bigger,
Take
get
it
out.
to the next level.
Get uncomfortable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well, I've been thinking about this because in the spring of 21, we moved our business out of our home shop into a big building in town. We didn't buy, we rented. But I was just going to give you the heads up. So when you move from your house to an actual building and go big, I'll describe it as it's like getting punched in the nuts every day.
Yeah.
So that goes on for about 6 months.
Cody he definitely made sure I knew that was going to be a thing.
There's a lot that goes into it. So anyway, to tie it back in, we are trying to make it where there's separate areas to do the bed liner, because the current kind of bitch that you have is the bed liner. When you spray it, gets all over the walls. It's a mess, and you want a designated area for that, designated area for your ceramic coating, which is a big deal.
Yeah. So the problem now is, like spray and bed liners, like you said, nothing can be in the shop because that stuff goes everywhere.
Sure.
Ceramic coating has to be, can't really have a guy next to the guy, or, if I'm ceramic coating, we can't have the guys detailing a car next to it because the stuff will mist over and get into, the coating. It's kind of very temperamental.
Right. So, yeah. So, anything else new going on in your life? I mean, you're pretty much wrapped up 24/7 in that. I'm surprised you actually even had time to scoot over here.
I was actually kind of surprised to see him. I appreciate you joining us.
Took a night off, so
good deal. So this episode, we're gonna talk about like essentials for bringing along in different scenarios.
Who asked us about this? Wait, this is kind of a listener idea.
It was a listener submission. Was it Friend Frog that asked about it? Maybe.
Possibly.
Anyway, one of the listener submissions was talk about road trip essentials. We're going to talk about, road trip essentials, razor riding, Jeep off-roading, car cruising, and racing. It's kind of our bullet
maybe
points.
just in general, like long road trips, even if it's with a regular everyday vehicle.
So let's start with that. Let's start with long road trips, because both of you guys have kids and you take long road trips. So, Dozer, you have a minivan.
I do, yes.
Kyle does not, because he does not believe in them. Bossman, however, his older brother, drives one every day. And I drove it the other day when we were working on Kyle's shop, and I got to say, that thing's pretty damn nice.
I mean, they've got the 3.6 liter. They're direct injected. I mean,
it hauls the mail for a minivan.
Yeah, as my buddy Ross said, it's the Swiss Army knife of vehicles.
And cup holders for days.
Yes, you can lay the back seats down and fit a 4x8 sheet of lumber in there.
Okay, so road trip, long road trip. Let's say we're going to, I don't know, your in-laws used to live in southern Missouri, like down that way, like a 5-6 hour road trip. What are we bringing along?
Basically, not counting any kid stuff or personal stuff, a gun.
Okay,
that's about it. Wife's van at the time we were doing that had under 100K on it. Didn't really bring anything too extra, honestly. Looking back, should have probably threw a toolkit in or something, but
I have like a tool bag that I will rotate from
vehicle to vehicle.
My truck, or like Bailey's Suburban or the Duster, and I'll throw an impact in there. It's got your standard, a wrench set and then some sockets, but I hate changing a flat tire with the damn tire tools that come with your car.
Right.
When we got my wife's van, it was missing the jack and the lug wrench. And I realized that. We drove 5 hours down to her parents and looked, and I was like, oh, we don't have that. So I went to O'Reilly's and bought just a universal scissor jack and a collapsible 4-way tire iron.
Okay.
And put those in the back. They fit in the factory spot. Perfect. It was great. And that's about it, really. I should probably throw, now that it's got 140K on it, should probably maybe throw a tool kit in there, just because if you had to change an alternator or something, it'd be nice to have tools.
So one thing doesn't matter where I'm going, a jumper pack. I always try to have a jumper pack with me, unless I'm just driving around town. But if I'm going out of town at all, I like to have a jumper pack with me, namely because a lot of my stuff is older, has higher miles on it. But I've used it more on other people's vehicles than I have my own. And I don't know if it's a Good Samaritan or karma or whatever you want to call it, but it feels good to help a guy or a gal or whoever. Shit happens. Battery goes dead. Leave the radio on, whatever. It's very, very simple to carry with you, and it can save a heck of a lot of headache having to get jumper cables and try to flag somebody down or whatever, just to be able to start yourself or somebody else without any hassle. Number one thing. And then my truck, in the door pocket, I have zip ties. So that's going to be a common theme for all of these is zip ties. Yes. So, and then as far as the kids are concerned, is there I don't have kids, so I don't have to worry about.
You could bring everything and the kitchen sink, and it's still not enough.
Yeah, the DVD player is nice in the van. My red truck has the Apple iCar or whatever. It's like a double din
CarPlay.
Yeah, and we can play DVDs on that. It's like a 4-inch screen, and the kids will watch it from the back. I don't even know how they see it, but
their eyesight is better than ours.
So we actually, when we went down to Tennessee, we have the same DVD in there since we've owned it. It's Ninjago.
Okay.
So it got scratched up enough because the kids take it out and throw it around and stuff. So it got scratched up enough. You used to be able to skip past the scratches, and that didn't happen. So we actually went to Walmart into a red box, rented DVDs, watched them on the way back home, and then returned them to the red box at Walgreens in Effingham.
That's funny.
So that's your pro tip for the night?
I guess. I don't know.
So riding down to Mount Vernon with Kyle, we listened
to Paw Patrol.
I don't know what they like about listening to a TV show.
Kids are wild, dude.
Oh yeah, I don't even. So for the longest time, Bailey's Suburban, it's always had the DVD player, but for the longest time, Cohen didn't even know that you could hear what was on the TV.
Okay.
So Bailey had taken she had volunteered for a school field trip, and she had to drive a couple kids to Pizza Man. Well, Cohen's preschool is 500 feet from Pizza Man. But the little boy that was in the back seat insisted that she turn the volume on Paw Patrol so they could listen to it while they drove. So ever since then, every time we get in it, Cohen's like, turn it up, Mom. I need to hear it. Turn it up.
That's the most annoying thing about the van is you can't listen to the radio and listen to the DVD at the same time. They actually make, for the town and country, they make Bluetooth headsets that I do not own, so the kids can listen to the movie and you can listen to the radio, because it gets kind of old listening to Paw Patrol for 5 hours straight.
And over. Yeah.
But yeah, it's same deal. And then they'll be watching a movie and Cody will call, and I'll be talking to Cody over the Bluetooth, and we can't hear the movie. Be quiet. I'm on a business call. But you talked about your truck, and my list changes a lot when I take my truck. Maybe my truck always has a toolkit in it.
Okay.
It's got 380,000 miles on it. And if I'm towing a trailer, the floor jack gets thrown in the back.
Okay.
And even if I'm not, I might throw the floor jack in the back, because I would rather jack a diesel truck up with a floor jack
rather than a scissor jack.
Right. I do not. For the years, I did not own a cordless impact. I do own a cordless impact now, and
you're welcome.
How the hell did you live life without a cordless impact?
I just did not think it was something I needed, and now once I have it, I use it all the time.
Absolutely.
I don't even know if I've turned my air compressor on since I've owned it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I have, but
just a little bit.
Well, the metal cutting table runs off the air.
Well, okay.
But it is nice not fighting an air hose. I know that.
Okay. Any other just flat out road trip essentials?
Just jumper pack. When I'm going down to Tennessee, I bring a jumper pack with me.
Okay.
Just spare tire for the trailer, floor jack, and like I said, I've always got a toolkit with me and a gun.
Gun, toolkit, floor jack. All right. So then, since we're talking about going down to Tennessee, let's talk about wheeling essentials. So if we're going out, me personally with the side-by-side or you with your Jeep, there's some definite essentials that you need for sure. So specifically Tennessee, when you're going down there, like we discussed in the previous episode about Tennessee, you're putting some serious miles on. And you can't just drive your truck within 100 feet of your broke-down machine. You need to be a little more self-sufficient. So one thing for sure that I always have in my Razor, it stays in my Razor.
Is it a gun? No, I'm just kidding.
Is not a gun. It's a first aid kit.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a pretty basic, just got it off of Amazon. I think it was like $30-$40. But it's got a lot of not really essential first aid products, because a lot of the first aid kits that you get are just like 5,000 Band-Aids and some freaking gauze and some aspirin. Yeah, so this is more of like a military, I guess, tactical, whatever you want to call it. It's got...
They'll make anything tactical.
Yeah, whatever. But it's got like a snake bite kit and a tourniquet and some like blood clotting powder, basically to take care of some more serious injuries. We got burn ointment, which is I've used before. It's pretty important. But the idea is, in my mind, if, a somewhat non-serious injury can become potentially life-threatening in the wrong situation. So if you're lost in the middle of Tennessee, which we have the blessing of Ride Command and GPS and stuff, but if you're lost, don't know where you're at, you could be walking in circles for days trying to find the way home or the help or whatever. So if you get a decently large cut on your arm or something, you could bleed out if you don't get it taken care of. So that's why I got the tourniquet and the blood clotting powder and stuff. The Israeli bandage is in there. I got it's pretty cool. It's like a splint, but it's rolled up, and you unroll it and break it or something, and it gets hard like a cast or something. It's pretty cool. I haven't used it yet, but it's there.
Thank God.
I'd have to take it out of the package to use it and buy a new one.
And then I got a ice pack, the one you break and it gets cold. Mm-hmm. And I've also got a Bic lighter in there and a flint and steel in there and magnesium shaving. So it gets cold at night in the mountains, and if you're broke down or whatever, you can start a fire, to signal, smoke and or light, and then obviously to keep warm. And then alongside it is 3 glow sticks. And this is all stuff I've learned off of the forums. If you are, I guess it's a universal thing that I didn't know until I read it, so I probably wouldn't know without this. But PSA for today is, if you're going down a trail and you come across a glow stick, keep going. If there's a second glow stick, then there should be a third one. And then the third glow stick, kind of like triangles on the highway, is, if you're in distress, you have a glow stick where you're at, close to you, and then one within eye shot of the first one, and then again, eye shot again. And the idea is it's supposed to bring people to your aid. So I've got that stuff. Never had to use it, knock on wood, but that's something that I kind of take a little bit of extra time and care with, because it's always nice to have it and not need it. And like I said, I've used the lighter tons of times. I've used the burn ointment a few times, used Band-Aids plenty of times, but the more serious stuff I've never had to use. I mean, there's gauze and scissors and all the stuff you'd expect in a more of a military style first aid kit.
And that's more of a survival kit than just a first aid kit, I feel like. I've got some first aid kits, but they're just ones from Walmart and stuff.
Exactly.
And I brought them, actually, between my truck and Jeep, I had 4 first aid kits last time we went.
Jeez.
So,
but I mean, yeah, like that, like
not
that
on
kind of
purpose. It just kind of happened that way.
So being prepared, that's kind of like expect the unexpected. Maybe, if you're going wheeling in a hauler or a bottom or whatever here locally, it's not at all
not
essential.
A big deal.
But I mean, I'm not a pessimist by any means, but I like to be prepared in a worst case type scenario, or at least try to think that I could at least help myself through a bad situation.
Prepare for a rainy day, because it's going to rain.
It's going to rain. So along with that, while I'm razor riding, I like to bring plenty of additional clothing. So obviously dress for the weather, but depending on the time of year, you could be 70 degrees out riding in a t-shirt, sun goes down on the wrong side of the mountain, starts raining, you can get cold real fast. So I like to have a jacket or a hoodie with me depending on the time of year. My rain gear, the frog togs that like motorcycle riders wear, they roll up super compact, you can store them. Dust mask, because it can get dusty and breathing that shit sucks. Goggles for your eyes, because I'm always in the back, the tail gunner, so to speak, and all that dust and crap gets kicked up. It's hard to breathe, hard to see. And then along the survival type aspect, snacks, because I can't survive without snacks.
Don't want that blood sugar getting low.
Cannot let the blood sugar drop.
Old sand page out in the middle of the mountains.
But it's actually a law, I think, is it out in California? You have to have a bottle of water and a granola bar in your off-highway vehicle, because it's a whole nother level yet again from Tennessee as far as being out in the middle of nowhere, and it's the desert, so you can get dehydrated quickly. So having a couple drinks, a couple snacks with you, even if you're not planning on using them, just to have them, again, just in case. So,
right, I was telling the guys at the transmission shop about that. I was like, when we're out racing at KOH, when you go to the remote pit 1, it's like 30 miles through the desert, and there's not a road there.
And it's not easy terrain either, yeah. And then the last one that I have, or not the last one, sorry. A big one that I have for the side-by-sides is spare parts, because like we were talking about on the Tennessee episode, you can pretty much rebuild a razor on the side of the trail if you have the right tools and the right parts. So obviously a toolkit and spare parts. Try to have, we've over the years have built a pretty decent toolkit with all the ratchet, sockets, wrenches, everything that we need, screwdrivers, you name it, it's in there. Anything to do some pretty major repair to the razors in that toolkit, and the spare parts, tie rod ends, ball joints, axles, spare tire, a tire plug kit, and an air compressor. That's invaluable on the trail. Having at least a patch kit and an air compressor can get you miles and miles further than without it.
As I've seen. And one thing I want to point out is something I noticed between you and Cody that also happened to me accidentally was wheeling with someone that has the same vehicle as you.
Okay, yeah.
Because you and Cody split up what parts. You carry front axles, he carries rear axles, or whatever. And my cousin, I bought a JK Unlimited, and he bought a JK Unlimited. And when we went, I was like, hey, are you bringing your spare tire? Yeah. I was like, okay, I'm not going to bring my spare tire. And the spare tire fit on both. Mm-hmm. And, okay, well, I'll carry ball joints and U-joints. And he's like, okay. So we had a lot of extra parts between the both of us, but we're not bogged down. But then you got Jason, who's wheeling
completely different,
something completely different than us. He didn't bring a spare tire, but if he would have, he couldn't have shared ours. He couldn't have shared, he maybe could have shared some U-joint parts, but, no other parts we had.
No spare axles, anything.
Not even suspension joints, nothing.
Right.
So steering, nothing.
All of our, this has nothing to do with wheeling, but all of our drag cars, so like me and Dad, Cody, Rick, Kelly, Eric, we all run big block Mopar. We all run the same water pump. We all run the same fuel pumps. Like, at any time, if I lost and Rick is still in and he needs my fuel pump, or like his fuel pump takes a shit, like, one, we all have, like, carry a rebuild kit, and or two, you could take it off your car and put it on the next one. And that happened to me at Gateway at a Mopar event. My water pump took a shit, and we rebuilt it with one of Rick's rebuild kits, and something was in the radiator. It ended up breaking like the impeller on the when we rebuilt it. So we took his water pump off and put it on my dragster, and I think I got down to like 6 or 8 cars that day. But
yeah, that's something I never really put much weight to, but once I seen it and experienced it,
in action,
it's pretty
yeah,
nice.
For sure.
That's why another reason I wish Jason to buy JK.
Yeah. Maybe he will one day.
He won't.
I about shit when Rick's like, we were putting my dragster together, and he's like, you need to buy this water pump. I was like, all right, write down the part number, I'll order it. It was like $700.
Holy cow.
16 years old in high school, working 2 jobs to build this race car, and I was like, that is like 5 paychecks.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I'll buy it, you pay me back, but you have to have it. And like 2 years into the racing, I understood why.
So then the last one that I have on wheeling, Razor and Jeep besides, is radios. So in the side-by-sides, we run the rugged radios, which is the FM radio or GMRS. I don't even know. It's way over my head technically. But the communication factor is a huge asset.
I think it's GMRS, and you're technically supposed to have a license for it, except Rugged bought their own frequencies or something, and you do not have to have a license on Rugged's channels.
Quote-unquote private channels or
Yes.
something. Okay, that's fair enough. Anything else you have for the Jeeps?
Well, I mean, we didn't talk tools. I mean, we just bring, your standard toolkit. If you have special sockets, like a 36 millimeter for the front axle shafts on a Jeep. If like Jason, he brought his spindle nut socket for the front and back, just in case, you never know. Bring your specialized sockets, just a simple kit. I mean, you can do a lot of wrenching with a Leatherman.
Right.
If you have to.
Yeah.
And an adjustable wrench. I would say try to stay light as you can on the parts. Try to share as many parts between them. We did, for the first time ever, maybe not the first time. I've brought a Milwaukee M18 grinder.
Okay.
And I bring a cutoff wheel, a flap disc, and a grinding wheel. I zip tie them together. I also bring zip ties too on the trail.
Tons of zip ties.
Didn't use it the first time I went to Windrock. The second time, used it to take all the powder coat off my control arm that I had to weld. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of cool. It maybe didn't need it, but, I had
nice to have it.
I had it, so.
There's a hell of a lot more storage in a JK than there is in a side-by-side, too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And I
Unless
mean,
you have a four-seater.
Jason will bring 5,000 pounds in tools if you let him. And I was just like, don't worry about it. My cousin Greg's a Eagle Scout, so
he is that.
Has, a real nice tool collection and tool bags that are rolled up. And if you need it, the dude has safety wire with the correct pliers in his Jeep.
Is anything on his Jeep even safety wired?
We safety wire up our sway bars before we hit the trail. Because neither one of our Jeeps, we have disconnects, but nothing to hold the sway bar up.
So there's no fasteners that are legitimately safety
but he
wired.
had them.
Okay.
But side story, my cousin Greg's dad, which would be my Uncle Mike, is an airplane mechanic. And the first time he pulled that safety wire thing, I was like, tell me you're the son of an airplane mechanic without telling me you're the son of an airplane mechanic.
Exactly.
But that and, bring some steering joints. Just don't go crazy on parts, but it is nice if you can throw some, like I bought one upper and one lower ball joint. I don't know if I'd be able to get them changed on the trail without a press. Maybe I didn't even have a hammer, so maybe that was stupid. But you never know. If someone comes along with a hammer, you could maybe get them hammered out. And my big one was when I threw this in my Jeep, I thought I was the smartest guy I'd ever known. Is I threw a blue tarp in my Jeep, and I've probably wheeled 6-7 times with that blue tarp in the bottom of my trail box and never used it. And then when we went to Tennessee, Jason left his roof at home, had a 20% chance of rain. Well, we had a 20% chance of rain on the other side of the 73,000 acres. Well, we drove all the way to the other end, and it was raining there today. Mm-hmm. And so we tucked the tarp in his doors and, protected his kids from the rain. And he started calling it the Meth J instead of the XJ because it looked just like a trailer park on wheels at that point. And Laren's like,
awesome.
well, we're not going to lose him with that big blue tarp on him.
Guess not.
But that and, bring a floor jack for the ride down. And, you can use that on the trailer or the truck. I think one of us, we make Greg bring his high lift jack for the trail. Just one high lift jack between 3 or 4 vehicles.
That's plenty.
Yeah, one is plenty, and you hope to not have to use it. Then things are high
Death
lift has
traps.
saved me. Before I had a winch, I used that high lift multiple times to winch me out, and it's saved me. But I hate using it. I cringe when I have to get it out.
It can be dangerous. So, sidebar, you talked about maybe could get it changed, maybe not. A valuable lesson I learned too late in life was at least try.
Okay.
So if something's broke and you think there's
Oh, I know where this is going.
no effing way I'm ever going to get this fixed, just give it a shot, because you never know when that broken off rod end will just thread right out of your tie rod and save you an entire half a day of agonizing defeat in the blistering cold.
Oh my God.
That's probably one of those. We'll have to talk about this on a future episode, and Kyle will have to be there.
I will
and
definitely
Jason.
be there.
Put that on the list.
It is on the list. It is on
But
the list. Worst wheeling day ever.
We did not fix Sam's broken steering under the assumption his old steering would not come out. So we drug his Jeep backwards for hours back to the parking lot. And when we got home to fix it, it threaded out by hand.
By hand. So, pro tip, at least
try.
try. So anyway, we've covered wheeling and the Jeeps and the Razors.
And road trips.
And road trips. Kyle brought up the drag racing aspect. So I enjoy watching. I've only actually competitively done it a couple of times, but you guys both have. So talk about some essentials for drag racing.
I think it just depends on, like, you as a person, I guess. I don't know. If I go on a long weekend racing, money, obviously. I mean, if I'm leaving town and going for, a 3 or 4 day race, if I were to break something, I'm 5 to 8 hours away from home, and if I can buy something to fix it while I'm there, that's one big thing.
So cash.
Cash.
Okay.
Cash is,
What about a gun?
I always have one in every one of my vehicles.
There you go.
But I don't know. Like I said, it depends on you as a person, your car. My car has shifting issues, like randomly. I have an air shifter that's been sent off like 3 times because it randomly shifts first to third gear. Doesn't do it all the time. Might do it 5 times in a weekend. Might do it 5 times in 5 runs. So I bring...
Super handy in a bracket race.
Oh, it's a pain in the ass. 642 with a 3 every single time it shifts first to third.
I would just let it do that and then put that on the window. I'd make a decal.
So I always bring extra air bottles for my shifter, because typically my shifter seems sensitive to, if it doesn't have like 700 pounds of pressure in the bottle, is when it'll start shifting first to third. So I think I have 11 air bottles.
Good God.
I just carry. I always have an extra carburetor, shifter cable. That's another known 727 first to third gear shift issue. We have, the water pump rebuild kits like we talked about earlier, fuel pump rebuild kits, your normal tools. My dad carries 1 tube for like a racing slick, and I never thought it would come in handy ever. Like, I always thought it was dumber than hell. Why do you have it? What's the point of it? Until we were racing one weekend, and my cousin Eric had like cut a slick, and it probably could have been saved with that tire tube.
So, sidebar, your CO2 bottles that you use for your air shifter are like, I don't know, 1.5 inches in diameter by 10 inches long. Have you ever considered putting a 10-pound nitrous bottle in there?
So, yes, that's been a thought. Last year, I put a onboard air compressor to air my tires up.
Mm-hmm. But it doesn't get enough
That
pressure.
ain't gonna
Well,
get 700.
I've found you don't need 700 pounds to shift it. It only needs like so many
Well,
pounds.
it's a CFM thing.
Right. So a lot of guys who run an air shifter are running their onboard air compressors all the time.
Okay.
And it just feeds off of that. So I've talked about that. I actually said fuck all of it and bought a different shifter, and I'm going a total different route.
Where does the exhaust for the air actuated shifter exhaust to?
It exhausts
Surely just into the cab.
Into the cab of the car?
Yeah,
so it would be ill-advised to run nitrous oxide
no, probably wouldn't be a good idea.
as a gas to run your air shifter. Or it might be really fun. Who knows?
It exits out of the back of the solenoid on the shifter.
You could plumb that into the intake, though.
Oh,
Get
hell
some,
yeah.
Bob Glidden type stuff going
It'd be like it like flashed a converter as it shifted. Man, we should try that.
Yeah.
We should try that. Okay, so what else would you actually insist on bringing? Like, kind of think outside the box here, because one of mine is if I'm going to the racetrack to watch you race, I'm bringing a cooler full of beer and snacks and chairs, comfortable chairs.
So if you were going to come to a racetrack, definitely chairs. I love my pop-up tent. That's a must because 9 out of 10 times it's 100 degrees when you're racing, and you either put the car underneath of it, which we have a tent for the car, and then we have a tent to just hang out under like we did at Benton that weekend.
Oh, yeah.
Cooler full of beer for when you win, obviously, is a must. But 9 out of 10 times I drink my sorrows away on the way home.
It's like that song, That's Why We Drink.
Exactly.
Because we're winning, because we're losing.
Yep.
But
if Dean's going, a case of Dr. Pepper.
Or 3, and a carton of Winston's.
Mm-hmm.
A golf cart.
Okay.
Yeah.
A means of transportation from the pit to the starting line.
Yeah.
Whether it's
some
a
racetracks,
scooter, bicycle.
Right. Some racetracks we go to, you park really close to the starting line, so you can walk, and it's not terrible. But go to like Bowling Green, there might be, like, depends on the weekend, you might be at like the quarter-mile mark from the starting line. Like, that's a long walk.
That's a long walk. Long walk for sure.
So,
what do you need for the Nova, Dozer?
Well, seeing, I hear Kyle list off shift cables and this and that. We race a Chevrolet, so we don't really need that many
put a power glide in your Mopar.
I mean,
and
we have no trouble with our electric solenoid shifter. I'm just telling you.
And
you can't shift to the wrong gear if you only got 2, my man.
And
About $1 for every time all my Chevy buddies are like, I don't have that problem. It shifts first to second. No problem.
Exactly.
And the dragster shifts first to second.
I mean, you go low to high in a Chevy, and when your car shifts first to third, you're going low to high. I mean, I think it just wants to be a power
Yeah,
glide.
it just wants to be.
It's one of them transmissions, you know what I'm saying?
It identifies.
It
as a power
identifies as a glide.
What are its pronouns? It
Sucks.
So,
that's a Dodge transmission for you, though, folks.
So, anyway, the other advantage to run a Chevrolet is 9 out of 10 trailers are going to have the same parts for your car in it.
And O'Reilly's probably
on the shelf in the Spectre section.
But Kyle said a lot of things we did. The golf cart is nice. Recently, we've not been bringing the golf cart and been bringing a moped. It works okay as well.
Dozer and Jerry riding around nut to butt on a moped. I can see that. I'm picturing that in my head.
2 big dudes just cruising around on a moped.
It's 2022. Who's to really say?
They can't judge you.
So, Kyle talked about the fuel pump rebuild kit, which we had one and used it, and I'm pretty sure that never got replaced. So
write that down.
Yeah, the Holly Blue fuel pump rebuild kit we did use. We did need it one time, and that has not been replaced. I know he carries spark plugs.
Okay.
That's a must. Plugs, wires.
In like 3 end wrenches, like 3/8, 9/16, and 3/4 or something. Probably more than that, but not very many end wrenches, almost no sockets. Just enough to check air in the tires. I think we bring an adjustable wrench to change the 4-link preload if it's pulling a little bit, and that is a really cool thing. His car would be real bad about pulling to the wall, and you can take an upper link bar on the driver's side, twist it a quarter turn, and the car will leave different. So that's something that we've played with. It does leave straight now.
If you're my dad, you pack. I'm pretty for sure you could do a complete engine overhaul out of his trailer.
Or get at least halfway there. It's always funny because, like, over the intercom, the race announcer will be like, does anybody have, and just name out the most random thing, and he'll jump up out of his chair, I think I got that, and he'll be digging boxes out of the trailer.
He pulls these tubs. He's got like 50 tubs in the front of his trailer.
We're like the opposite end of the spectrum. Like, if it's not putting air in the tires or tightening the lug nuts, we'll just go home and try again next weekend.
He's a Chevy guy.
Well, and so
we're not that competitive.
So and that's another thing.
Though we did win one time, Street Fighter Champions 2019. Just saying.
I would like to have like your dad and Uncle Rick for one of these because it would be so much fun. I've heard so many stories about the old Monster Mopar days, like rebuild a 727 between rounds and win the whole thing. You know what I mean? So like they had everything to rebuild the transmission.
In 2009. My Uncle Rick had like just got the CUDA up and going with the 540 in it, alcohol. It was a like flying toilet injection alcohol setup. Cracked number 5 and number 8 cylinder wall. He was at like 16 cars, and like the damage was done, but the car was still running like 560s or like 550, whatever it was. And he's told my dad, he's like, we're done. And Dad's like, you're winning. Like, you're going to win this race. We're not done. And he sent Rick's wife and his daughter to every single parts store within 30 minutes of Gateway's racetrack and bought every gallon of oil that they had. And every single round, we would change the oil, and it was just like straight water. He'd pull back. We'd put the car on jack stands, pull the doghouse off. Dad would be underneath of it, changing oil. And it was insane. He ended up winning that night.
That's awesome. That's the kind of story we need Dean and Rick here for, because that type of shit, I just love hearing that.
Yeah. But I would say we run pretty light on tools. So
now Dad's like new motto, if something breaks, he's like, yeah, fuck it, we're going home. Like, not going to work on it at the racetrack anymore.
Especially if it's on alcohol. Tires flat, fuck it, go home.
Yeah. Alcohol. Your tow truck don't work to get your race car here, it's because the race car's on alcohol.
Yeah, my father-in-law does carry ignition advance springs.
Okay.
Because for some unknown reason to me, into the world, he still runs mechanical advance on his race car.
Not locked out.
And
my street car is locked out. Just saying.
We had the springs get weak, and it was advancing at idle, and we would adjust the timing, and then when he's going down the track, it would shoot a 2-foot flame out the headers underneath of it because the timing was so retarded. And we fought that for like 2 years. Jesus. And when we finally found his 2 little springs were whooping us. But anyway, after 2019 season, he walked timing out, and the car sounds like a totally different car. I mean, it sounds like a race car now.
Yeah.
And we've never raced it since.
That's a shame.
Never. That car has not been down the track since 19, I don't think. So COVID kind of killed that, and then
2023 is a new year, man. Get it out.
Maybe. It needs a converter. It needs new headers. The headers, when you take them off, you can hold them up to the light, and it just looks like Swiss cheese.
I know a good fab guy.
Some guy came up. He's like, hey, you got a pretty bad exhaust leak. I was like, oh, yeah.
Sure do.
Yeah.
Thanks for noticing.
So it ticks pretty good. We put a wideband in it one time, and it read like 16-1. We're like, man, this thing's lean. Like, no, it's just all the air leaks sucking in fresh air.
Yep.
So anyway, yeah, it's
good thing Chevy parts are cheap.
Absolutely.
Do you guys carry anything when you go on a car cruise?
Yeah, so that's a whole nother list. Snacks.
Snacks.
Gun.
Gun.
Sam don't leave anywhere without snacks.
So it depends on the cruise. We've got 2 that we do every year without fail. That's the spring run and the fall run. The spring run is on Kentucky Derby Day on my birthday weekend, and it's bar to bar, so you don't really have to bring much there as far as snacks and drinks because you're at a bar. You can buy popcorn, chips, pizza, whatever, because bars just have food, wings, But the drinks and stuff, always, if I'm going out for more than just like cruising to my buddy's house or whatever, I've got a cooler with Gatorade and water in it because a black car with headers, with black interior, with no air conditioning gets pretty toasty, and you're going to want something to drink when you get to wherever you're going. So I try to have bottles of water and Gatorade in a cooler. Can't have a tumbler with anything in it because nothing built before 2005 has a cup holder worth even having. So that's a whole nother discussion. But for sure, depending on the run, so like the fall run is basically state park to state park, and it's kind of like off-grid overlanding in muscle cars because we pull up to a state park and we grill out our own cheeseburgers and we have our own drinks with us, and it's kind of our own picnic on wheels basically. Again, tools, gotta have tools because everything on old cars is typically 50 years old and a pile of shit. You name it, I've broke it.
Except that transmission.
Knock on wood. But having wrenches, sockets, ratchets, with your basic stuff, having like a nice little toolkit is not necessary, but it's handy. But for sure, vice grips, pliers, screwdriver, zip ties can get you a lot of things. I also bring now, I've kind of revised this last couple of years, I've revised my toolkit, and I also bring a test light, butt connectors and wire pliers and dikes because I've been having some kind of electrical issues on my car, and to be able to kind of quickly diagnose it and fix it, super important. Basically, your standard tools to kind of get you off of a dangerous spot or at least kind of get you going where you need to go
somewhere.
So like this last cruise we had, this gal, she was driving a newer Mustang, one of the newest vehicles on the run, and a brake caliper bolt came out, and the brake caliper bracket hinged up on the rotor and wedged itself in the wheel and locked the front tire up. It would go in reverse but not forwards. So we got her backed up and off the road, and then another guy actually found the bolt in the middle of the road. I was looking in the ditch for the bolt. We found the bolt in the middle of the road, and we were able to put it back in the bracket and get her home without a trailer because, the whole trailer thing, try not to have a chase vehicle. You'd have to call somebody. They'd have to go get a trailer. I mean, it'd be a few-hour ordeal. But basically having something between like your group of guys that you go out with, kind of like sharing the parts on the Jeeps and stuff. If I've got the socket kit, Kyle, you got the wrenches or whatever.
Right.
And obviously zip ties is a big one. And then in old cars for me, fluids. I have a O'Reilly's like oil box, I guess, full of all different types of fluids. I got penetrating oil, I got brake fluid, power steering fluid, coolant, transmission fluid, oil, everything, because my car may need it, your car may need it, but I've got it.
And that's something we didn't talk about on the wheeling one is I bring fluids and some electrical connectors and like a dikes in like a little bag too. 'Cause you just never know when
whether it's
a butt
you
connector
or
or a terminal or something will save the day.
So if I had a Chevy, it wouldn't be a concern, but I got a Mopar.
True. Yeah.
And the exhaust manifold bolts, They're drilled into water jackets, which is super handy.
We learned that the hard way.
And I had one come loose on our last run, and it was leaking coolant decently quick. I mean, it was a solid drip, not really a solid stream, but I used about, I don't know, half a gallon of coolant on that trip, just driving it all day. Didn't really give a shit because I'm putting the turbos on it, so the headers are coming off anyway eventually. But having that, being kind of like the prepared person, if somebody needs like, hey, I'm running low on brake fluid or I'm running low on power steering fluid, having that being kind of like saving the day for the next guy or whatever. That's something that I try to do because, older cars, they got big enough trunks, you can put quite a bit of shit in there.
That reminds me of the time we took your Dart up to Coles County Dragway.
Yeah.
And we brought those old slicks.
Yeah.
And we put them on your car. I don't know. They didn't fit or something.
They didn't fit.
We brought them up there. That was a fun time.
I have seen, so you talk about a tool bag. I've seen some old people on car runs have a tool box in the back, like in their trunk.
Okay.
And I've seen the toolbox try to exit the trunk through the quarter panel one time when an old man was leaving a car, like a car show.
There's a dent in the quarter panel of Marlene's Charger from that exact thing.
So, like, everybody was leaving. I think we're on Bryce Road in Columbus, Ohio, which is like burnout alley of the Monster Mopar deal over there. And some old man was in a all black, like black top, black stripe, red interior, beautiful 70 Challenger, left the parking lot, like the TGI Fridays parking lot, sideways, and like all you could hear as he was like half-ass losing control was something inside the car just slamming against metal, and he stopped, and you could see all four corners of his little red Craftsman toolbox that was in his trunk in the driver's side quarter panel.
Ouch.
Yeah.
So Ryan Goodrich sent Dozer and I a meme that was the difference between a street rod and a hot rod. A street rod has folding chairs in the trunk, which is another car trip essential, having lawn chairs. And a hot rod has a toolbox in the trunk because you're going to need to work on it.
Yes.
So obviously bring chairs, just like the racetrack, because, you get to some place and you might be sitting there for a while, especially when we do our state park run in the fall run. And I like to have music. I like to jam out while I drive. So I got that from Kyle riding around in his Duster. He's got some kind of boom. His radio doesn't work, but he's got some kind of boom box. And we're always cranking out the tunes, driving down the road, just living life. And but
it popped up on my time hop the other day when I bought my convertible Dart. And it was like 16 degrees outside and snowing. And Sam insisted we drive the car like through T-Town with the top down.
What's the point of having a convertible if you put the top up?
It was terrible. But yeah, that pulled up on my Facebook.
So Dozer, what do you bring car cruising? Oh, way.
He sells us cars faster and he can cruise them.
Hey, I've had the Falcon over a year now.
Has it left the garage?
No, but
it will with short time.
So that's coming up. I mean, it's winter time.
He'll make the spring run.
My goal is the T-Town car cruise,
which is in the middle of summer.
I don't think my son could handle another year of
without
not doing a burnout.
So, sit rep on the GTX. It's supposed to be done.
Rep.
It's supposed to be done for the spring run in May.
Turbo should be on the Dart by fall.
I talked to Dean at CW.
Hasn't touched it.
And I was like, I heard you got the Sam's Hemi because someone told me he's been working on it. I think it's Cody. Cody's like, oh, yeah. And, or maybe it's you. And
it wasn't me.
I was like, I heard you were working on Sam's Hemi. Oh, I ain't even took the trash bag off of it.
Yes, he did. He took the trash bag off.
Well, this was like a month ago.
He took the trash bag off and put a fitted sheet on it. So we have gotten that far.
The problem is he's waiting on
that 383.
So I have a little bit of an issue.
Okay.
And this hit me. The other day. So you like, why don't you like freshen this Hemi up? Because follow me here. Like, yeah, Dean knows how to do it better, but what happens when some 25-year-old needs your help? And I was like, hey, like I got this Hemi. Like, do you know, like you got a Hemi? Can you help me out? Like, I don't know. I've always had Dean do my stuff.
Because I asked for his help. I was going to tear it down in my garage, and he was in Dean's garage messing around with the Challenger, and I was like, Dean, I need you to come over here and look at these rod bearings for me. And he's like, you just load that sucker up and bring her over to Crossroads. I'll get her looked at, lickety-split. We'll
You're
get
a
that
machinist. You shouldn't need nobody to look at no bearings.
We'll get that Hemi running like nobody's business. Just get it over here. So I got plenty of other freaking projects. So I was like, hell yeah. So we brought it over there. Meanwhile, working on other deadlines, I've got to get my dad's panhead chopper done. There's a vintage motorcycle show May 19th at the Harley Barn, and my goal is to have that sucker done to take to that bike show. So hopefully
is your dad going to go to that? Or?
I would assume he would. Yeah,
I'd like to go.
He's going to be like a kid in a candy store.
I can't decide what he'll think, to be honest. The jury's still out on that.
I think he'll be I think he'll be laid back. He'll be pretty. Oh, that's cool. I mean, he may be excited inside, but like won't show it. I don't know.
I mean, he seems pretty excited that we're doing the project, like in general. But I've had to put my foot down a few times as far as like his Jeffisms, if that's even something that makes sense. So I told him I'm in charge of the mechanical, and he's in charge of the cosmetic. It's his bike still. I'm just kind of helping with the build.
But we're not wiring it with an extension cord anymore.
Exactly. That's my thing. It's going to be done correctly.
Is it electric start?
When it was a factory motorcycle, it wasn't.
What just happened? Rim tire.
I got struck by lightning. So, in its original form from the factory, it was an electric start motorcycle. It also has a kickstart, and at some point in time, the starter motor was taken off when a block-off plate was put on there. That's how it's going to remain. So, like I said, he has the creative license. He picked out the colors, and when we ordered the wheels and tires and stuff, he is in charge of what it's going to look like. But I told him I have veto power, and I put that caveat in there for one reason and one reason only. He bought at an auction an antique fender-mounted headlight off like a 1930 International pickup truck. It's cool as shit. I mean, it's a cool fucking headlight. But it's like 12 inches in diameter.
Old KC Jeep light, baby.
And it's gonna go, and he's wanting to put it on the front of this motorcycle, and there's 7 inches between the forks of this motorcycle, and you're gonna put a 14-inch headlight in it. Like, no. I put my foot down, that's not happening. I'll find you a similar looking headlight in a 7-inch variety, which is still huge for a chopper, but it'll get the job done. So he seems pretty excited about it. It hasn't run since 1979.
I'm excited. I like your idea of what you're going to do on the back fender.
Okay.
So I guess as you've been doing this over the last 2 years, I always assumed this was a put it back to how it was for nostalgia, but you are building it to how he always wanted it to be.
A little of both. A little of both. So he was, I mean, when he was riding this motorcycle, he was just a broke guy. You know, I mean, he had no money at all. Like you said, he wired the ignition and taillight with an orange extension cord. I mean, just because he had it laying around, couldn't go buy wire.
This before or after he had a sawed-off shotgun?
You'd have to call and ask him. You'd have to call and ask him. He made a custom air cleaner cover out of an ashtray and super glued the Harley Davidson Eagle in like a sterling silver scroll work style metal ashtray, and it was like screwed to this air cleaner. It's the pictures of it. It's on my Facebook. But he, I mean, had all these things that he put together to get the bike going. And a lot of it is cool, but also not necessarily functional. So we're going to retain as much of that as we can. So another example, the front axle, there's supposed to be just cylindrical spacers between the forks and the bearings on the front wheel. Well, he found they look like the end of a fire poker that's got like a little hook on it, but he said they came off of like a gate or a fence or something. But it's these just metal hooks that kind of hook into the front wheel. They look cool as shit, and we're going to clean them up, powder coat them, and put them back on there just because they don't serve any, functional purpose any greater or less than just a piece of pipe. You know what I mean? So that type of thing, we're going to try and incorporate that back into it, but it's going to be wired correctly. It's going to have electronic ignition. It's got a distributor that's got points in it. That's getting, I cleaned it up thinking we could rebuild it, but I'm going to buy the entire distributor that's electronic conversion. The generator could be rewired, but we're going to put the new style alternator with a voltage regulator built in, just to clean up some of the wiring, and it's going to work a lot better than a 1965 generator. Just things like that.
Wasn't there something unique about that, about how they something the way they did it that was like a crossover year? Where
So it's a 1965, which is the very last year that they made the panhead engine. With the bottom end stayed the same for 66, but they put a shovel head on top of that bottom end, and that was called the pan/shovel. And the 65 was the last year of the panhead and the first year of the Electroglide, like, nomenclature. It was a different transmission, the 4-speed transmission, and basically it was, in its original form, was like a full dresser, like a cop bike. I mean, it had a suspension seat in it. It had a soft tail rear end. It had lights everywhere. It had the whole console down the middle of the two tanks.
So this was a true, like, he turned it into a chopper.
Well, he bought it already chopped.
Gotcha.
And funny story about that, I had the frame powder coated years and years ago. And when they did the chop, they cut the neck off the front of the bike and they put a bigger angle on it to get the front end out. And it was all bondoed over where they had done the chop. And when they sandblasted it for powder coat, they blew all that Bondo out of there, and there was like a fish plate welded in there, but it just had 4 tacks on either side. And the powder coat people called me up, and they were like, you need to come look at this. Went and looked, they're like, this is a problem. And I was like, well, just go ahead and just weld it up and then powder coat over it. And you can see where, like, a powder coater did the welding, but it's way better than it was. And, like, that was the thing. I had a discussion with the builder, like, do we want to cut this out and redo it? And I was like, honestly, no, because that adds to the story of the bike. And, arguably it detracts from the value of the bike, but I'm not building it to resell. I'll never sell it. Somebody after I die can sell it. Whoever
it'll be in our podcast room.
Yeah, we got to put it up there.
Yes,
it's too
like
tall.
the orchard.
Dang.
It's
Cut
too
your
tall.
floor out.
Cut the floor out. I mean,
We could build, like, the orchard's got that bike hanging off the wall. We could.
Where's this bike gonna live when you get it done?
I thought about buying a bubble like Nate Thompson and just putting it in a bubble, but I don't think the bubbles are long enough.
I'd put it right there. Except for when your basement floods.
That could be a problem.
Kyle knows about that.
It's a shitty deal.
Oh, shit. Well, I guess we're going to go ahead and wrap this episode up, guys. Thanks for listening. Again, you can reach us on Facebook, or Short Story Long on Facebook. You can email us at askshortstorylong@gmail.com. We would love to hear your tips for all of our different adventures type stuff, and what would you bring along. Feel free to give us a follow, a like, and a share. Tell someone you know. And you guys have a good one, and we'll see you on the next one.
See you later, guys.
See ya.